Hello everyone and welcome to the Files lecture. This is going to be a pretty brief lecture and we're just going to go over how to interact with external files on your computer. And in this case we're going to start with the very basics, the .txt text files. So in order to deal with other types of files such as audio files or Excel documents, you'll most likely have to either download or import from a particular library or module for Python. And we discuss modules later on in the course. Okay. So here's the Jupyter notebook that corresponds to this lecture. You can go ahead and look through it, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into the live coding. So in order to work with files, we need one. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've created a file called a .text file called test.txt, and I've saved it to the same directory where my Jupyter notebooks are. So if I say pwd, which stands for print working directory, and run that cell, it gives you the location where your Jupyter notebooks are. So go ahead and make a .txt file and just print a simple line in it. So if you're on Windows, you can use Notepad, which is built in. Just say anything here. This is a line, and then go ahead and save that as whatever name you want. In this case, I've saved it as test.txt. And save it into the directory where the pwd tells you to. Okay, so moving along, how do I open that file? So I'm going to create a variable just called f. I'm going to say that equals, and this is where the open function comes into play. So we can open a file with the open function, and I'm going to say test.txt, and I've opened the file. And now if I want to read the contents of the file, I can call the read method on that file. And I wrote, this is a test line. Great. So something interesting that happens is if I try to read that file again, you'll notice nothing pops out. So why is this happening? So the reason this happens is because you can imagine that you have a cursor, kind of like the one I have blinking in this cell. So remember, we've already read the file once, so Python, in a sense, has the cursor at the very end of the file. So you'll have to reset that cursor to the beginning. And the way you can do that is by using the seek method and pass the argument in 0. So that will send that cursor back to the beginning of the file. And if I say read again now, it says this is a test line. So one more time, I can press seek to return to that beginning of the file. Another method you can do to read the lines of a file is the read lines method. And what that does is it goes through every line in the file and then treats it as an element and returns a list to you with each line as a different element, a giant string in that list. Okay, great. So I'm going to go quickly, kind of a sneak peek at iterating through a file. So we've gone over magic functions when we were introducing the Jupyter notebooks, and in this case we're going to use a magic function called write file. And what this is going to allow us to do is, instead of having to open the Notepad or any other Sublime text editor or whatever you happen to choose, I can actually create a text file straight from the IPython cell. So I can say first line, second line. So what this cell has right now is 2 percentage signs to let you know that this write file statement is a magic function. So this only works in Jupyter notebooks. And then space, and then whatever name I want that text file to have. In this case, it's going to be new.txt. And then I have 2 lines in my file, first line and second line. So if I go ahead and run that cell, Jupyter notebooks have told me it's writing new.txt. Perfect. So what if I want to iterate through this text file? Here's where I'm going to give you a sneak peek at a for loop. So what I can say is for line in, and now I'm going to open that file, which was called new.txt. Remember, I pass in the entire file name, including the extension, as a string, colon. Notice how there's a white space, an indent here. That's going to be important. Don't worry if you don't understand what's going on now. We go over for loops in much more detail in the future. This is kind of just a sneak peek. and then I can say print line. So the logic here is I'm saying for every line in this object, this file object that I'm opening here, I want you to go ahead and print that line. So let's see if this works. Perfect. So just as we expected, it's printed the first line and the second line. So a couple things to note here, and this is just to get you start thinking about different statements and for loops and stuff like that, is I could have called this anything. I could have said for words in open, print words. It still would have outputted the exact same thing as I have here. So you'll be able to have flexibility in what you call each of those elements in those iterables. Something also that's important to note is read lines, if you have a very large text file, could have problems because the Python is right now storing this list entirely in memory if you call read lines. So if you have an entire series of novels or something and you call read lines on it, that might be problematic. So make sure you just call .read on the file if you have a very, very large text file. Okay, so that's actually about it. Remember, we just briefly went over how to open .text files and how to read the elements in them. If you want to go over some more details that are in the Jupyter Notebook, such as reading and writing to a file, we go over that. You can go ahead and check that out. Reason we're not going to go over it right now is that we're not really going to use this until much later on in the course. So this is just a brief introduction and a little sneak peek into for loops. Okay, so that's it for this lecture. Up next, we're going to go through learning how sets and booleans work in Python, and that will be the last lecture in this section, and then we'll wrap it up with an assessment test. Okay, great job everyone.